On today's Locked On Jayhawks, we preview KU football off the bye, taking on the Houston Cougars.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Derek Johnson. You can find me on Twitter at DJohnsonRadio. This is Locked On Jayhawks. Thank you to everydayers catching each and every show. And thank you if you're tuning in for the first time, the fifth time, whatever time. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe to the show. And on today's edition of LOJ, we are previewing Kansas against Houston. We did a late night in the fog preview with Nick Schwartz, so check that out if you haven't already. But today is about football. Coming off the bye week, feels like could be basketball season, a chance to reclaim some happiness for the football team this Saturday. We'll get into the headlines of the game. We'll get into the Houston scouting report, the importance of this one, matchups of the game, players to watch, and a little pick a prop on today's edition of the show, which is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, where you can place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started today. So Kansas taking on Houston, 2:30 Central Time in Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City. One of the big headlines is one, what is going to be the crowd attendance for KU? You know, they actually filled it out pretty good for the TCU game. I think it was listed at like 47,000. Now, was that a totally accurate count? I don't know. But if you're even in the ballpark of, let's say they had 40,000 for that game, you know, given where they were record-wise, obviously not to the point where it is now, but still, there wasn't a lot of hype to that. Like, there was credit to KU fans who showed out for that. I don't know what it's going to be like for this game. You could convince me it's 15,000 people. Like, they're giving away some cool, like, KU, KC flags to the first 10,000 people in attendance. Are there going to be leftover flags for other people? If you're asking me to guess, I'm going to guess like 20,000 people, but you know, how many of those are going to be Houston fans? Willie Fritz has a lot of family who's going to be in attendance if you caught our Locked On crossover episode. I don't know. It'll be very interesting. I'm hoping it's a good attendance. I'm hoping a lot of KU fans show out and it still gets to 30, 40,000, but you can understand why that would not happen. Now, both teams are coming off of a bye week into this game. So unfortunately for KU, this isn't the ability to be like, hey, we got an extra week to prepare for you and an extra week of rest to prepare for you. Nope, they had the same week off that you did, which is certainly unfortunate that you don't get that advantage there. But Kansas, the last 2 years, has scored some pretty important wins off of bye weeks. They had the Oklahoma State 21-point win in 2022 that got them bowl eligible, and that was a really impressive outing all around by KU. I mean, they dominated Oklahoma State in that game. And last year, they beat Oklahoma for what was, the first time beating them since the 90s and was just an incredible game, an incredible win for KU. So the last couple of years, Lance Leipold delivered off the bye week. We'll see what they can do this time, even though the other team, your opposition, is also coming off that bye week. Now, if Kansas doesn't win this game, another headline in this one I think that comes out of it is everybody's like, right now there are a couple teams you could probably toss around for who is the worst team in the Big 12. And maybe that's a pointless conversation because you could just say, okay, well, it's just a group of teams are among the best and a group of teams are among the middle and a group of teams are vying for the bottom. And with how fickle the league is with everybody knocking off each other in the Big 12, there is no like true worst and true best. It's just an amalgamation of like, okay, you rise a bit to the top more often, but like, is there really that big a difference between first and third or 13th and 16th or whatever it is, right? But if Kansas loses this game, it's hard not to have the argument that they would be resume-wise or record-wise the worst team in the Big 12. And that doesn't mean they are. It doesn't mean they would finish that way. But certainly that would be the conversation. I think if you don't win this game, 1-11 is a realistic outcome that is staring you in the face. This is your most winnable game remaining, and you're already 1-5. So if you lose this game, I mean, you could win this game and still lose out, right? It's a tough schedule. Kansas State ranked on the road. Iowa State ranked. BYU ranked on the road. Colorado could be ranked depending on how they do these next couple of weeks when you play them. It's a pretty tough schedule over the back six for KU. So if you don't win this game, I am worried about what the final record is going to look like. Not that we're not already worried about that right now. And then I think the last headline, this is from Houston perspective, they're trying to build some early momentum in the Willie Fritz era. You get the big win over TCU. If you go on the road and beat Kansas now, all of a sudden you're going to feel like, hey, Maybe we're not a team that's going to go 7-5 or 8-4 this year, but we're trending in the right direction in year one under Willie Fritz, that we can really be a powerhouse in the future of this league, given the recruiting hotbed we're on with our really good head coach. As far as the Houston scouting report, they are 96th overall in EPA offensively right now. They are 105th in success rate, and they are last in the Big 12 in yards per play by a sizable jump, and they're only scoring 13.7 points per game. So this has been a point-blank bad offense for Houston so far, but the story's not complete, because it's not the same offense now that it was to start the season, not just because it's a new head coach, and the longer you go, the more comfortable you're going to get with the system, with the scheme, but also it's a new quarterback. And this new quarterback was their starter against TCU. They scored 30 points. They had over 200 yards rushing. So is it all of a sudden, prime Lincoln Riley Oklahoma offense? No. But is it at least decent now? Is it a little bit better? Yes, probably. Now, they're only 106th in EPA per rush in the country. They're last in the Big 12 in yards per pass attempt. For what it's worth, Houston is the only team that KU is ahead of in terms of yards per pass attempt. So these are the bottom two passing offenses in the Big 12 by that metric. Though KU is actually worse than Houston in pass efficiency. But this Houston offense hasn't been great. They don't hit explosive plays, but what the new quarterback has brought is the dual threat ability. He had over 100 yards rushing against TCU. He had nearly 150 yards passing against TCU. He can do a little bit of everything. Now, they don't really hit explosive plays. That hasn't been a thing for them this season. They're just 120th is Houston on third and fourth down success rate. So it is a bit of a plodding offense, and they did take advantage of some turnovers in the TCU game, and that's what they're going to try to do. They're going to try to play clean, fundamental football, plod up and down the field, hold on to the football, hope for some good special teams, defensive plays, turnovers, whatever it is, and then take advantage of those. On the defense side of the ball, though, I think their defense is the best unit, at least on paper, coming in this game. If you were ranking, the KU offense, defense, special teams, the Houston offense, defense, special teams, I think you would look at this and say, okay, the Houston defense is the best unit. They're 25th nationally in EPA defensively. They're 23rd in success rate defensively. They are 5th in the Big 12 in points allowed per game and yards allowed per play. So this is a good defense. And what has to scare you if you're a KU fan is that really the one consistent for Kansas this season has been their running game. They're running the football. And at times it's been like, why aren't you running the ball more? Well, Houston is 13th in defensive success rate against the run. They're 40th in defensive success rate against the pass. So when you look at how that comes together, Pro Football Focus grades, they've been better in coverage than they have in pass rush specifically. But what does that mean for KU? Do you change who you are and say, okay, we have to be more of a passing team? Or would that be playing into Houston's hands? Or do you try to be a running team, but if they stop the run, then what do you do? So this kind of is one of those games where it's a lot of games it's been, hey, run the football, give the ball to your best players with Devin Neal and Daniel Hishaw. But in this game, Jalon coming off his best performance of the season against a defense who is not as good against the pass as they are against the run, albeit they're good at both. Maybe it does make a little bit more sense to throw a little bit more in this game. As far as the importance of the game, I don't know, man. I can't sit here and say, well, this is the game that turns the season around. This is the game that starts the second half run where they go undefeated or they make their way to a bowl game. I don't know. I think just the importance is trying to get back fan support, trying to get back positive vibes for the rest of the season. You're getting to basketball season, trying to have people care about the rest of the season. Because if you're sitting at 1-6 and next Friday is the KU Arkansas exhibition when it's going to feel like KU basketball really has started, if it doesn't already feel like that with late night in the fog, it's certainly going to, especially then you're on the road against K-State, you lose that game and you're 1-7 for your next home game. I mean, it's going to be 90% Iowa State fans after that. So there is a huge importance on this game, just getting the positive juju, positive momentum kind of back into your program's favor. All right, let's continue on matchups of the game, players to watch. This is Locked On Jayhawks. This episode of the show is brought to you by HIMSHims, which is changing the men's healthcare routine by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. HIMSHims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and Viagra and Cialis and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's visits or conversation like this one we're having right now. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That is HIMS.com/lockedon HIMSHims.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. HIMS.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. Thank you for making Locked On Jayhawks your first listen every day. Don't forget you check out Locked On College Football or Locked On College Basketball for your second listen. You can check out our Late Night in the Fog preview and plenty of upcoming this weekend, whether it's going to be aftermath of what happens in Late Night in the Fog or the KU Houston game. All right, our matchups of the game. First down play calling. So right now, Kansas actually ranks 32nd in the country in early downs EPA. How does that get affected in this matchup? You know, as we talked about, Houston has a good defense, but they've been really stout against the running game. And Kansas has been inconsistent passing, but Jalon Daniels did just have his best game, and they're coming off a bye week. So, like, maybe that's going to make him even better in terms of, I don't know, getting more practice time with the team. Could we see more throwing from KU on first down? Does it make more sense to throw on first down and have it work? Now, if Kansas is able to still run the ball on Houston, which that's going to be a tough task to accomplish, but it's entirely possible given the horses the KU has there, then the pound the rock stance sticks with it, and you let your stars shine there. But I actually don't mind, at least on paper in this one, you know, maybe early in the game, you test their run defense with those runs on first down to see if you still can make it work with your strong run blocking offensive line and running backs, even against a good run defense. And if it's not working, then you adjust from there. I guess the problem, though, is I don't know how much I trust the adjustments in game right now of the coordinators. It feels like the best stuff we're seeing from the coordinators is more for the pre-planned stuff, but we will see. I actually don't mind if there's more first down throws in this game on paper. Problem is Kansas ranks 121st in passing grade on Pro Football Focus. I will say one quick note. If you are throwing the football, don't throw Jeremiah Wilson. He's got an 80 coverage grade for Houston as an outside corner, whereas their other two corners are in the 60s for overall grade. So whoever Wilson is guarding, go the other way. Second down, stopping the run for KU. Houston had over 2 bills on the ground against TCU. And when you look at Willie Fritz teams, like, they want to run the football, whether it was at Tulane, you think like Tyjae Spears being there. You think back to, I was confused if it was Georgia Southern or Georgia State, but he's running that kind of like veer, like speed option type stuff. You think about Sam Houston State when he's like winning national title at the FCS level, like they're running that veer kind of running attack. Like, they want to run the football. They want to be a physical football team. And add to it that right now Houston, even with the quarterback change, they rank 124th in passing grade and 126th in receiving grade on Pro Football Focus. If you can slow their running game down, it means they shouldn't score much, assuming that you don't have a bunch of turnovers offensively, which, you know, is quite the assumption. But Kansas was doing well with stopping the run early in the season, and then it's kind of faded fast. And that kind of sounds like a familiar story year in and year out. I can't tell you how many years KU's run defense looked better in the first half of the season or the first 3-4 games, and then it starts to fade out. Kansas is now 12th in the Big 12 in yards allowed per carry. They're also just 97th in tackling grade at the moment. And it's not just stopping the designed running game, what the running back has or what's designed to be a run, but it's quarterback scrambles. And at this point, I don't know. I almost feel silly even bringing it up because it is a key of the game, and Houston's running back is a really good scrambler. He's probably going to have a lot of yards. But I almost regret bringing it up because it's just like we've seen this be a problem for Kansas since 2021, since the Lance Leipold era has taken over, and it just hasn't been fixed. So, like, what am I to think that all of a sudden off one random bye week, now they're going to finally stop quarterback runs? You know what I mean? Like, I almost feel silly bringing that up as one of the keys to the game. Can you stop the quarterback scramble? Because I'm just expecting them to be able to quarterback scramble. So it almost becomes like, can you overcome them doing that and just hope it's not something that completely takes over the game or hits you too many key plays of the game? Can you do other things well in addition to them doing those things? And I don't know if Cornell Wheeler is going to be back. Lance Leipold said he was doubtful earlier this week. Now, hopefully that was just maybe, I don't know, playing mind games with Houston to have them expect him not to be back. But the games with Cornell Wheeler, the KU defense is averaging 3.4 yards allowed per carry. and they've given up 480 rushing yards total in the 4 games that Cornell Wheeler played. So that's 120 per game. The games without Cornell Wheeler, they're giving up 5.8 yards per carry, 460 rushing yards. That's in 2 games, so half the amount of games, almost the same amount of yards, and that is 230 rushing yards per game. Third down. Keep Houston bad on third downs. Houston's last in third down conversion rate in the Big 12 so far at just 27%. It hasn't been very good. Now, KU's defense is allowing 42%, which that's just 12th. So they haven't been great on third down either, but you have to keep Houston from staying on the field and get your offense good field position. This can't just be about making stops. It has to be about winning that field position battle that Houston's going to try to do. And keep this in mind too, for those third downs. Sometimes they can be the precursor to what's going to happen on fourth down. You give them an opportunity to go for it on fourth down. And Kansas hasn't been a very aggressive team on fourth down. Willie Fritz is aggressive on fourth down. And so you can't just be good enough to say, okay, we stopped them to 4th and 1, because then they're going to go for it. And in a lot of cases, if your run defense is struggling and they're a good, and they have this quarterback who can run around, they're going to convert some of those. So hold them to 4th and 5, hold them to 4th and 6, take that out of their hand. All right, fourth down is the turnover battle. This is one, unlike the last 2 games for KU, that I think it matters more to the result. KU was actually plus in the turnover battle their last 2 games and lost both of them. But I think in this game, where I'm kind of expecting less points, I see a Houston offense that isn't nearly as explosive as Arizona State or TCU, and I sit there and go, okay, this is the game where if you win the turnover battle, you should feel pretty good about it. Versus this is the game where if you're -2 in turnovers, it's going to completely kill you, because that's going to be what kind of ignites their offense. Now, Houston, oddly, in that TCU game, had 3 fumbles and gained all of them back on their offensive side of the ball, I should say. They fumbled the ball 3 times and picked all of them up. Meanwhile, they forced 2 TCU fumbles and they got both. So, that's some great fumble luck there. Typically, you recover, it's statistically around 50% of the fumbles that are available. Both teams typically recover around that 50-50 mark. Sometimes maybe it's 55-45, whatever. But in theory, that means if there were 5 fumbles on the field, which there were in that game, you would expect Houston to basically recover 2.5 of them. But they recovered 5 of them. So I don't know. Does the pendulum swing the other way? Do they have a bad fumbling game, bad fumble luck? I don't know. Just putting this out there. I feel like Cobee Bryant's due for a pick 6 if he plays, which we will see. As far as our player matchup here, Houston defensive tackle Carlos Allen against the KU guards. Carlos Allen is a interior defensive lineman. He grades really well on Pro Football Focus. Talking 77 overall. He's got 22 tackles, 1.5 TFLs, and a sack. He's not a big pass rush guy, as you can probably tell by the numbers there, but he is a great run defending defensive tackle. He plugs up blocks. He takes up blockers. He fills the middle. He has an 88 run defense grade out of the middle. Now, KU's offensive line, they're a top 10 unit in terms of run blocking right now nationally, according to PFF. And at one guard spot, Michael Ford's been one of the highest rated guards in the Big 12. At the other guard spot, it's been a bit of a revolving door. You have Kobe Baines and Shane Bumgardner, who have each had moments and each had good games. Each have had kind of down moments as well. But whoever is lined up on Allen, given where they're lined up on the field and whatever, that's going to be a huge matchup for KU. And maybe it's even double teams, right? With one of the guards and Bryce Foster trying to take him away, because if he, wins a lot of his matchups, it's going to make it that much harder for KU to run the football, which, even in this matchup where you're playing a good run defense is kind of your bread and butter. So if KU can find a way to run the football, it goes a long way in them winning this football game. And Carlos Allen is kind of the first point of attack in trying to run the football for KU. All right, let's finish up here with Pick a Prop and Hawks to Soar. This is Locked on Jayhawks. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, where you can currently get Kansas plus 210 to make the Final Four in basketball. You can also get a -5.5 for the KU Houston game, money line -205, the over-under at 46.5. You can do all that with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. And in addition, when you're watching games and you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more with FanDuel on that same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That is at FanDuel.com. Finishing things up on this episode of Locked on Jayhawks. And again, don't forget to check out our Late Night in the Fog preview with Hawks to soar and pick a prop. Unfortunately for pick a prop, I should say, the props aren't actually up there yet for FanDuel. I'd imagine some of that is both teams coming off a bye, don't know injury reports, stuff like that. I'd imagine something will be up there soon, but we'll work around to give you hints on that. So as far as the offensive side of the ball, Hawks to soar here, I'm going to say whichever receiver for KU is not being guarded by Jeremiah Wilson. I mentioned Wilson, 80 PFF grade right now. The other two corners, though, for Houston in the 60s. So Wilson has allowed 16 targets. He's given up just 6 catches, so below 50% the times he's targeted. He has just a 21 NFL passer rating against. So whoever's being guarded by Wilson, tough luck. Meanwhile, the other two corners, though, with the most snaps on the outside are Latrell McCutcheon and Johnny Carter. And collectively, those two have been targeted 38 times. They've given up 25 catches. That's a 66% completion rate for 321 yards. So over 8 yards per target with 2 more penalties and 5 touchdowns for no interceptions. So I don't know exactly which guy Wilson's going to guard. Is he going to take Quentin Skinner after the big game he had against Arizona State? Is he going to guard Luke Grimm? Is he going to guard LJ Arnold? I don't know. But whoever's not being guarded by him, I think that would be the one to go. Maybe Q Skinner would be the one we want to highlight here because he looked like he kind of started to ignite a connection with Jalon Daniels last week. But yeah, whichever of those receivers it ends up being, that would certainly be the one that I would kind of be on the lookout for. And then on the defense side of the football, I'm going to say Cobee Bryant. If Cobee ends up being out, I'm going to say Mello Dotson. So Chris, the quarterback for Houston, he was great against TCU, super efficient. 15 of 18 for 141 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions, and 97 rushing yards for a score. He did a little bit of everything. But he also, in limited play so far this season, right, has a turnover-worthy play percentage of over 7% according to Pro Football Focus. So what does that mean? Well, let me put it to you this way. Jalon Daniels' turnover-worthy play percentage, which is basically how often when he has a play, is it a turnover-worthy play? Doesn't necessarily mean it was a turnover, right? If he throws a ball and it gets dropped by the DB, that's still a turnover-worthy play. Jalon Daniels' turnover-worthy play percentage is 5.9% out of comparison. Again, Chris is over 7%, which I don't think we think of this year for Jalon Daniels as being like a super, esteemed job at avoiding turnovers, and his number is higher. You know what that tells me? KU corner is going to get a chance to get one in this game. And like I said earlier, I feel like Cobee's due for a pick 6, but maybe it's Mello Dotson, maybe Cobee's out, maybe it's another corner, maybe it's a safety, whatever it is. I think this is the type of game that you might be able to get one on that turnover chart. All right, that'll do it for this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. If you are looking for pick a prop stuff, maybe it does make sense to have Jalon passing yards as part of it if KU's unable to kind of run the football. So then you'd just be fully reliant on that. I certainly like Chris, the Houston quarterback, over on rushing yards. I don't even know what it's going to be. Might even take some alt lines with that one, maybe even a touchdown for him. But that'll do it for this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. You can find our show anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page. We'll see you next time with LOJ.